We like to think we make logical decisions when spending our money, compare the options, weigh the pros and cons, get the best deal, right? Well, it turns out our brains have some quirky shortcuts and blind spots that can lead us to very irrational choices without us even realizing it. Don't worry, it happens to everyone. In this episode, we're peeling back the curtain on shopper psychology to explore some common cognitive biases, the mental tricks and traps that influence what ends up in our shopping cart. By the end, you'll recognize these sneaky biases and be better equipped to outsmart them, or at least laugh at yourself when you fall for one. Anchoring and reference prices. Let's start with a big one, anchoring. Imagine you're shopping for a winter coat. You walk into a store and the first coat you see has a price tag of $500. Yikes. That's steep. You then find another coat for $250. It suddenly seems like a bargain, almost cheap in comparison to that first one. What's happened is your brain latched onto that first price as an anchor. All subsequent prices are judged relative to it. If you'd seen a $100 coat first, that $250 coat would have looked expensive. But thanks to the $500 anchor, $250 feels reasonable. Retailers know all about anchoring. This is why you often see a manufacturer's suggested price or original price crossed out with a big discount price next to it, even if no one ever intended to sell the item at the high original price. Seeing that $100 struck through and $50 as the sale price makes your brain scream deal. The $100 serves as an anchor to suggest $50 is a great value. On e-commerce sites, you'll see language like compare at $80, now $39.99. Even if $39.99 is the normal going rate, that comparison sets a high reference point. Here's a fun example of anchoring beyond prices. Real estate agents sometimes show buyers an overpriced, run-down house first to make the next houses seem wonderful and reasonably priced by contrast. In shopping, the same principle can apply. A store might display the most premium, costly item in a category, prominently anchoring your expectation high, so that when you see the mid-range item, you feel relieved that it's so much cheaper and are more likely to buy it. The power of free and decoy options. Another bias. We go a bit nuts for anything labeled free. Say a website offers free shipping if you spend $75. How many times have you added an extra item to your cart just to avoid a shipping fee? I know I have. Maybe I'll toss in a pair of socks for $8 that I wasn't originally planning to buy, because paying $7 for shipping with no product feels bad, but getting free shipping by spending $8 on socks feels like a better deal. Logically, I still spent more and now I have socks I might not have needed, but it felt like I gamed the system and got something free. This is closely related to what behavioral economists call the zero price effect. We'll choose a free option even if a slightly better overall value is available for a tiny cost. For example, imagine a promo, buy one get one free BOGO versus buy one, get a second for 1 cent. Technically, those are almost the same, but free sounds irresistibly better than almost free, so people swarm to BOGO deals. Now let's talk decoy effect. This one is a bit sneaky. A company may present a third option as a decoy to make one of the other two options look more appealing. A classic example, popcorn at the movies. You see a small for $4, a medium for $7, and a large for $7.50. Most people wouldn't even consider a $7 medium because, heck, 50 cents more gets you a large, so the large seems like a no-brainer in comparison. In reality, the theater wants to sell more large popcorn since it's cheap for them to give you more popcorn, so they put that decoy medium price there to nudge you upward. Without the medium option, some might have bought the small, but with the medium as an absurd middle option, many customers choose large. Our brain didn't weigh the absolute value. Do I really need that much popcorn, and is it worth $7.50? It got tricked into a relative choice for just 50 cents more. Of course, I should get the large. Decoys can show up in subscription plans, appliance models, and more. Anytime you see a trio of choices and one seems like a really bad deal, ask if it's just a decoy to push you to the higher price one. Social proof and bandwagon effect. Ever notice bestseller labels on products? Or a note that 20,000 customers can't be wrong? That's leveraging a bias called social proof. We're inclined to do what others are doing, especially if we're unsure. If a lot of people have bought or endorsed something, our brain takes that as a shortcut for quality or correctness. After all, if it's the top seller or everyone's raving about it, how bad can it be? Online shopping amplifies this. Think about product ratings and reviews. Seeing an item with thousands of 5-star reviews biases you to trust that item. You might ignore a less reviewed item that could have suited you better, just because it has only a handful of reviews, and you feel safer going with the popular choice. Crowds attract crowds. If a restaurant has a line out the door, people assume it must be good and are willing to wait, whereas an empty restaurant next door might be just as great but is overlooked because no one else is there. I might miss out on a fantastic pad thai simply because it wasn't trending on Yelp. In shopping, this bandwagon effect can also show up as limited stock remaining. Messages online. If you see only to left in stock or other people are looking at this right now, you feel a nudge, others want it. It's about to be gone, I should grab it. Even if those messages are automated or exaggerated, they play into our fear of missing out on what others apparently desire. Confirmation bias in reviews. Once we have an inkling we want something, our brains love to gather evidence that we're right. This is confirmation bias. Say you're eyeing a new smartphone. If deep down you already fancy it, when you read reviews you'll probably give more weight to the positive reviews. The camera is amazing, battery lasts all day, and downplay the negative. Some random guy had it freeze on him once, probably a fluke. We kind of cherry-pick info that confirms our decision to buy, sometimes even subconsciously. Marketers take advantage of this by, for instance, highlighting selective reviews or statistics. If a customer is already leaning towards a purchase, showing them a quote from another happy customer or a statistic like 95% of users reported satisfaction helps seal the deal. We often don't seek out the opposing view with equal vigor. Few people, when excited about a product, will purposely read the one-star reviews with an open mind. More likely, they'll skim those or rationalize them. Sure, this person didn't like the dress, but maybe it just didn't fit her body type. It'll probably be fine for me. Choice overload and default bias. Now here's a bias that's actually about too much choice. Humans love having options up to a point, but when we're flooded with them, our brains can short-circuit. You probably experienced standing in an aisle with a dizzying array of choices, maybe 50 kinds of shampoo or cereal, and feeling overwhelmed. That's choice overload. Studies have shown that when people are presented with too many options, they can become paralyzed and end up not choosing anything, or they choose something but feel less satisfied, wondering if another choice would have been better. In response to option overload, we often resort to defaults or familiar picks. This is default bias, preferring whatever the default setting or option is, to avoid the effort of deciding. For example, many people stick with the default plan like the mid-tier cable package, the basic insurance option offered by work, or the default settings on a software simply because evaluating all the alternatives is daunting. In retail, a store might have a recommended or most popular configuration for a laptop, and lots of buyers will just pick that one rather than customizing, because it's easier to trust the suggested default. Some cunning retailers structure choices so that a particular option is the easy default. Think of subscription services. Often the annual plan is highlighted as best value even if only slightly, and set as the default option on the page, nudging people to pick it, or a pre-check box at checkout for adding a warranty. Many won't bother to uncheck, effectively increasing the sale. Sunk cost and endowment effect. Finally, let's touch on two related ideas, sunk cost fallacy and the endowment effect. The sunk cost fallacy is when we've already put resources into something, we feel we should keep going to not waste what we've invested, even if continuing isn't the best choice. In shopping, this might look like spending a lot of time trying on clothes or researching gadgets, and then feeling like, well, I've spent an hour on this, and might as well buy something. We hate walking away empty-handed after investing effort, so we'll buy an item partly to justify the time spent. Or if you paid for an annual membership to a warehouse store, you might overspend there thinking, I paid for the membership, I need to make it worth it. Even buying things you don't really need because you feel committed. The endowment effect is about how once we perceive something as ours, we value it more. If you've ever had a free trial of a subscription and then felt reluctant to cancel because you got used to having it, or you put an item in your online shopping cart and somehow that made you more likely to go through with the purchase, that's the endowment effect creeping in. Physical stores know if they can get a product in your hand or let you try it out, you'll feel a tiny sense of ownership and be more likely to buy. It's why test driving a car or trying on jewelry can be so persuasive. For a moment, you imagine it as yours and then parting with it feels like a loss. Conclusion: phew. That's a lot of brain quirks affecting our shopping, and we've only scratched the surface of behavioral economics. Now, none of this means we can't enjoy shopping or that we're hopeless puppets of our instincts. The idea is that by knowing these biases exist, we can catch ourselves in the act. Next time you're about to click checkout, take a second to think, am I anchoring on a fake original price? Am I just buying the most popular because it's popular? Did I add this extra item just for free shipping? These little check-ins can save you money and regret. At the same time, give yourself grace. Everyone falls for these biases. Even experts, they come from normal human ways of thinking. Marketers have simply learned to tap into them. But now you have learned their secrets. With this knowledge, you might find yourself making slightly different choices, or at least knowing exactly why that large popcorn in your hand felt so impossible to resist.